The Second Punic War, Part 3, but oversimplified. It's been a minute, but let's go. Link for our Patreon in the description box down below.
Check it out, guys. Oh, my head's been an issue already.
Oh, I'm loving the animation already. I'm loving this little trailer intro. Let's go.
Casual list as well.
Yeah, that's sick. Okay, it took you a while, but this is worth it.
I love how the horses look like they're cracked out.
Yeah, man. It's like comic book style. Like
Yeah,
animation.
did you see the guy getting drowned?
Oh, yes.
This is sick.
Go over to his channel and watch this himself. He deserves all the views. That's where we left off last episode. Let's go.
How do you solve a problem like Hannibal? In a crisis such as this, the Romans often turn to religion. What's going on? Are the gods mad at us? The gods must be mad at us. But why? Why? No, why? 2 of the Vestal virgins broke their sacred oath and lost their virginity. That's why Hannibal's kicking our ass. What should we do with them? Appease the gods! Bury them alive! Who did they even boink? It was those guys! Huh? What should we do with them? Beat them to death!
That could have been me and you.
Not even us!
Literally. But we do look like
Okay, now that that's out of our system, let's go find a real solution.
Mama,
the real
virgin.
solution, first
Now
of all,
that's out
involved
of our
raising
system,
a
let's
new
go
army.
find a real solution.
Remember, at Cannae, Hannibal had wiped out the biggest army Rome had ever fielded. Possibly 20% of Rome's military-aged men. Rome needed to replace those losses, and fast, before Hannibal arrived at their gates. But where would those replacements come from? Rome had a few ideas. Quick! Lower the age of conscription! You! Put down those Digimons! You're a soldier now! Enlist all these slaves with the promise of freedom! And equip them with all these religious
Mate, me and you slaves.
Anything we've
I'll
got.
front line in that.
All right, men.
And then
you
run left.
are Rome's last line of defense. Man the
What, we're
walls!
on the Mediterranean, a different continent? Deuces.
No Roman.
After the earth-shattering defeat at Cannae, the Romans
Britannian.
expected Hannibal to arrive at
Any
Elephant.
tea?
We did it! We won! So when do we march on Rome? Today? I'm free in 10 minutes. Whoa, slow down. We're not going to Rome. We're staying right here. Are you an idiot, Hannibal? No, I'm smart. We don't need to march on Rome, because after what we did, the Romans are definitely going to surrender.
That he started
Watch.
knowing,
Hey, Jim Bob. Yes, sir?
mistakes.
Go to Rome and
Yeah.
discuss peace terms.
I think his ego got
Yes,
the better
sir.
of it.
Hey, I'm here to discuss
should've
peace
just took
terms.
Rome.
Piss off! They told me to piss off! What? They didn't surrender? No! And they were mean! Hannibal was learning that Rome had an unprecedented attitude towards surrender. Even when Hannibal offered to ransom thousands of prisoners back to Rome, a pretty common practice in ancient warfare, the Romans refused, opting to let their own men be sold into slavery rather than paying a penny to the enemy. It was clear that in order to defeat Rome, you had to annihilate them. If any Roman man was still standing, you hadn't yet won. But still, Hannibal decided not to march on Rome, and it was a controversial decision. Even one of his own commanders famously told him, Hannibal, you know how to win a battle, but you do not know how to win a war. From Hannibal's perspective, perhaps he knew his army was designed to survive behind enemy lines, and sow chaos. It may not have been well equipped to undertake a risky siege of one of the most fortified cities on Earth. Plus, with many of the southern cities defecting to his side after Cannae, Hannibal likely thought things were going pretty well, as is. We'll stay the course. Okay, so the Romans didn't surrender after 3 major defeats. But surely they'll surrender after 4. Unfortunately for Hannibal, however, after Cannae, the Romans well and truly learnt their lesson. Well, would you look at that? Remind me, who was it that said Hannibal was too dangerous to fight? You. And who said we shouldn't fight him directly? You. And who tried to fight him directly? Us. And what happened? We lost 20%
I'm not gonna lie,
of our
I'd be this
military-aged men.
Yeah.
That's right. So tell me, when Hannibal approaches, what do? We run away. I'm a genius. Clap for me. After Cannae, Fabius Maximus kind of became the unofficial leader of Rome. Even if others were elected consul, his influence was unparalleled, and Rome quickly reverted to the Fabian strategy of avoiding Hannibal. They knew they couldn't defeat him, so instead, they hoped they could at least contain him. They raised an impressively large number of men, partly by enlisting teenagers, slaves, and criminals. And rather than trying to fight Hannibal, they instead turned their attention towards those treacherous southern cities that had switched sides. Thanks for joining the winning team, guys. Here's the deal. All you have to do is provide me some troops and defend your own city, since I'll be too busy to defend it for you. Now, I'm going to briefly turn around, look this way, and when I look back, you better not be being massacred by the Romans. Oh, for goodness sake! The Romans spread out their newly formed legions and began attacking the southern cities here, there, everywhere. The southern cities expected to have Hannibal's protection, and Hannibal was inundated with requests for help. He was forced to run around southern Italy, trying to encourage defection while rescuing his own allies. But when he showed up, the Romans would often leave, only to come back the second he went away again. And as these southern cities found themselves being punished severely by the Romans, they began to realize that joining Hannibal may not have been such a good idea.
Yep, they fucked up
You
big.
think you're so big? Attacking my allies? Why don't you come out and face me? Because you're scary! The fickle southern cities frequently switched sides depending on who appeared to be winning, and the whole situation became a nightmare for Hannibal to control, playing a constant game of Roman whack-a-mole to fend off the enemy armies. Having not long ago seemed near extinction, the Romans had managed to turn the situation around by placing Hannibal in a clever predicament. If he left southern Italy, the southern cities would likely capitulate to Rome, meaning he couldn't leave. And since the Romans wouldn't fight him, he couldn't inflict any more dangerous defeats. For now, Hannibal had been muzzled. Southern Italy had been his prize for his impressive Italian campaign. But those clever Romans found a way to take his prize and turn it into his prison. With the Fabian strategy neutralizing Hannibal for now, the Romans were freed up to refocus their attention to other fronts.
Interesting.
This whole time, while we've been discussing Hannibal and the Italian campaign of the Second Punic War, fighting had actually been occurring elsewhere. For example, in 216 BC, the Romans had sent an army north to punish the Celtic tribes that had joined Hannibal. However, as the Romans entered the Latana forest, little did they know those clever Celts had set up a trap. The Celts dropped trees on them, decimating the Romans, and they even took the commander's head to use as a religious sippy cup. So that went pretty bad.
Yeah, that did.
Very bad. But thankfully, in other theaters, things were going a bit better. For example, let's look at Sicily. After Cannae, internal chaos in Syracuse caused this longtime Roman ally to switch sides, because being a winner is more fun. The Carthaginians also landed troops, hoping to retake their lost island, while Roman proconsul Claudius Marcellus moved in to besiege Syracuse. The siege was a brutal slug for the Romans, largely due to the presence of one famous scientist and mathematician, Archimedes. He lived in Syracuse at the time, and he invented a variety of clever contraptions to defend the city. There was a giant claw that could grab and destroy Roman ships, and purportedly even a big mirror that could magically ignite them. The Carthaginian forces...
Fuck off. The mirror, right, the mirror.
The mirror
I
is
can
sick.
completely understand that. That's absolutely fucking genius.
That's-
Wooden boats using the sun.
That's
smart.
viable. I can see that
Right?
happening in that
And then my
time.
man decides to go and make a fucking,
Claw.
like down the arcades.
I got one. I got one.
Look, Timmy, you've got the captain. Now drop it back on his boys.
That's nuts.
That's fucking...
That's crazy.
He invented a crane.
Someone put a
claw.
link in below to reference to the claw being used because that is sick, and I want to know who come up with it.
Where
I
the
wanna
fuck
read
did they
into
find
it.
out?
That's sick.
How
That's
did
why I
they
want to
find
read
out?
into it, man. And I'll come back to you if
Did you
someone
see
helps
the
me
painting
out.
of him? Like, did you see the fucking protractor in his hand?
Nah, that's jokes.
My man knew shit.
Yeah.
Like, how can you know shit back in the day?
A
Back in that
protractor
day,
painted in
there's
his
no
hand, he knew
Tinder.
shit.
There's no fucking Google Maps. There's no what 3 words, right? But him, I can make a claw, pick shit up. I can make a big mirror.
The big mirror is burning.
I want to
shit
know
as
what
well.
else that man done.
Nah,
Because there's,
I can't
I
wait
know
to
the
find out.
name. I know
Let us
the
know.
name.
Let us
There's
know.
obviously loads more.
Linkus.
Is that his name, Linkus?
Was on the island attempted to come to Syracuse's
Dickhead.
rescue, but luckily for the Romans, they all got diarrhea and then died. Finally, in the city itself, the day of a big annual religious festival came, and the Syracusans said, "Well, fellas, we've been holding off the Romans for over a year now. I think we've earned ourselves a little party." Sir, we're still under a massive siege. Are you sure? They'll probably take advantage of it. Well, Carl, I'm taking advantage of the open bar. Sir, they've got battering
Me and
rams. Well, Carl, I'm
Oh,
ramming these
dear.
hors d'oeuvres
Oh, dear.
into my mouth. Sir, they'll tear down our walls. Well, Carl, I'm tearing it up on the dance floor. Sir, they're literally at the gates. Well, Carl, I'm literally at the cheese platter. Marcellus took advantage of the drunken festivities, stormed the city, and plundering ensued. In the chaos, Marcellus ordered Archimedes be captured alive. Some sources say Roman troops entered Archimedes' home, and they were like, "Hey man, are you the math guy? Go away, I'm drawing circles. Look, I just need to know if you're the nerd. Come on, bro, get out of here, you're messing up my circles."
Oh, no.
Now is not a good time to draw circles. It's always a good time for circles. I love circles. Either stop drawing the circles or I kill you. I choose the circles.
Fuck's
Despite
sake.
not securing Archimedes, by 210 BC, the Romans did secure Sicily.
You need
and
to
also
secure
put
the
down a
package
Carthage-supported
yourself.
rebellion on
Literally.
nearby
Because
Sardinia.
you guarantee yourself
2 Roman successes.
you are going to
And
not
there
come
were
back with the
more to
package if
come.
your boys find him.
After Canada, King Philip V of Macedon saw
Probably
an
get
opportunity.
bummed.
He was concerned with recent Roman expansion into Illyria. And so, when he saw Hannibal annihilating the Romans in Italy, he
What?
said, "Oh
Did
my
you realise
gosh,
what you said?
hey,
Yeah.
And then I imagine the painting. I was like, oh no,
Oh, you
Roman bumming.
You joke.
Oh,
Jack.
Christ.
Fucking hell.
Oh. Right, so one of them's drowning.
Oh my gosh, you're so cool! Let's form an alliance and annihilate the Romans together! Sure. Yes!
Oh, he's not drowning.
He's not.
Hoped to secure Philip's help in fighting
A
Rome,
flamboyant
but a Roman
dolphin.
army was sent to the region, stirred up Philip's other Greek opponents, and essentially kept Philip bogged down in Greece for the entire duration of the war. Another kind of Roman success.
Kind of.
But the main front Rome was hoping to push Carthage back in was Spain. The riches of Spain made it one of Carthage's most valuable possessions, and the Romans were eager to weaken it. Remember way back at the start of the war, the consul Scipio was supposed to go to Spain, but ended up rushing back to Italy when he realized Hannibal was crossing the Alps.
I do remember
He
that.
then faced Hannibal at Ticinus and had to be rescued by his son. Well, after he recovered from his wounds, he proceeded with the original plan and joined his brother in Spain. There, the 2 Scipio brothers fought a successful campaign against Hannibal's brother, Hasdrubal. Over the next few years, they won a number of key victories.
Oh, mate,
even
he's
taking
editing.
Saguntum,
10
the
out of
city
10.
that
It's
had
on point.
kickstarted
Oh,
this
10 times
entire
better than
war.
mine. No,
Yet
million
more
times better.
Roman success.
Right,
A
score
trend
Scipios.
appeared to be emerging. Whenever the Romans fought anyone other than Hannibal, they usually came out on top. Perhaps these other fronts would be the key to Rome taking back control of this war. Perhaps
Would
it
it?
was time for Rome to return to their old ways of being the aggressive go-getters. And perhaps it would help if Rome had a Hannibal of their own.
Dun dun dun.
Johnny Sins.
Scipio, the younger, was the son of Publius Scipio, currently fighting in Spain. This made him a member of one of Rome's most prestigious families. Not much is known of his childhood, although
Interesting.
there is one story of how he was getting hot and heavy with a young lady, only to have his dad barge in and drag him out wearing nothing but a cloak. This story was written by a Roman poet to make Scipio look bad, but by modern standards has ended up making him look pretty rad. My guess is if Rome had a high school football team, Scipio would be the
Tyson
quarterback.
Banks.
Scipio
Go
was
down in
only
history.
18
He'll
when
be
the
an
Second
awful
Punic War
man.
broke out. He was at
Mum's
the Battle
a
of
pussy
Tacitus,
beater.
where he famously rescued his father, and he was one of the survivors of the Battle of Cannae. After which he threatened to cut down any man who dared abandon Rome. He was a natural leader and
He's
up to his
one-armed, yeah.
ears
Oh,
in
no.
spunk, and therefore he rose through the Roman ranks shockingly fast. We need a new military tribune, but Hannibal has killed so many men, we're running out of options. Put me in, coach. Scipio, you're only 20. You can't be a tribune. Come on, coach. Put me in. Well, you do have a lot of spunk. All right, you're hired. We need to elect a new Ida. Who do we have left? Put me in, coach. Scipio, you don't meet the minimum age requirement. I got this, coach. I got this. Well, okay then. You're in. Ugh, my room's a mess. I gotta cook dinner. Oh, and would you look at that? My fly's down.
Advert.
Life sucks.
Huh?
Put me in, coach. Wow, you're so spunky. When Scipio was 25,
I
he
fully
received
thought that was going to be an advert.
his father
Oh,
and
I got
uncle in
played.
Spain had both
Oh,
been defeated in
God.
battle.
Definitely won't be the
And
last time.
shockingly,
No, it
both
won't
of them were killed.
Oh
The
shit.
news must have been devastating
Dad
for
and
the young
uncle?
Scipio. But it was also devastating for Rome, as almost all of their Spanish gains were wiped away.
Oh dear.
Oh,
Okay,
shit.
listen up. We need someone to go and replace the Scipios in Spain. So, who's up for it? Come on, who's gonna go? Fabius, Spain seems unwinnable. There's no glory to be had there. Yeah, the glory is here, defending the homeland from Hannibal. Well, somebody has to go. I said, well, somebody has to go. Put me in, coach! Scipio was eager to be the one to go and replace his father and uncle in Spain. However, there was concern amongst the older senators. You're
Way
only
too young.
26. You can't lead a military campaign. He's right. That's a good point. And you're 71. You can't stand up without a little urine dribbling down your leg. Scipio didn't meet the typical requirements for the position, but as the only person willing to go, this young piece of hot Roman meat was unanimously elected proconsul and sent to lead the Roman armies in Spain. He hoped to carry out a campaign as impressive as Hannibal's had been in Italy. In fact, Scipio rather admired the one-eyed general. Scipio, you've got a Hannibal poster in your room. Yes, but he's the enemy. I'll let you in on a secret, Billy. You know how we're gonna win this war? By marching straight at the enemy? No, that's the old way. We've gotta be less Roman and a little more Hannibal. Hey, by the way, don't just barge
Kinda
into my
fair.
room. That's an infringement of my privacy. Privacy? Privacy, you say?
There's the
Well,
advert.
Scipio.
Yeah, there's the advert.
Click.
I see you. You haven't liked the video yet. Why not? Go on, go like it. While you're at it, you know you want to subscribe. And if you want to go to our social medias, all the links you need are in the description box down below. And you might as well head over to our Patreon as well, where you can get extra bonus content if you're enjoying this. That link's in the description box down below. But we'll get straight back into the video. Love you guys.
Hannibal contained a young piece of hot Roman meat sent to lead the Roman armies in Spain. Scipio was charismatic, extremely confident, bold, and probably most importantly of all, he thought differently from other Roman generals. So, Skippy, what's the plan? Don't call me that. We're Roman, so same thing as usual, right? We march straight at the enemy, right?
Nope.
Get this, Billy. No, we don't.
We didn't
Scipio
find
was
out
a
much
real
about this guy,
outside-the-box
did we?
I
thinker.
don't think we
There were
did.
From
three
the,
main
history
Carthaginian
of
armies
Rome.
in Spain, two led by Hannibal's brothers, Hasdrubal and Mago,
He
and
was the
another
one that told
led by
us.
Hasdrubal Gisco. Most Roman generals might have looked at these armies and
What?
said, I just
Is
gotta...
he on that message? Not message, the one we couldn't do videos on.
No. That's X credits.
That's it.
Yeah. Copyright strike from X credits, so we don't do reaction from them no more.
Right, okay.
Rather than not poke the bear. If you don't want it, that's gone.
Yeah.
We'll just leave you be. But yeah, anyway, History Marsh is where we had the big long Hannibal one
Yes,
that we really liked.
yeah.
And we had that little clip of us like doing the horses, them two like driving past each other. God. Anyway,
mate.
we're gonna get back into this one.
Autism is just so lonely.
Also, the weeds mean we don't remember a lot.
You know, march straight at these guys and
I
kick their
know
ass
what I
and
have for
stuff.
breakfast, but
Not
I didn't
Scipio.
have breakfast
At a
today
time
or
when many
for many
believed
years.
winning battles won wars, one of Scipio's greatest strengths was an ability to see the overall strategy behind his actions. He knew that Spain was the closest thing Hannibal had to a base of support. With its mass resources and manpower, it's where Hannibal likely hoped to get supplies and reinforcements from. Spain's
I
base
do
of
remember
support
this
was
part
the
of the
city of
information,
New Carthage, the most fortified city on the peninsula, perfectly positioned to communicate with and receive supplies from Africa. And so, if Scipio managed to take New Carthage, he could take Spain. And if he took Spain, then maybe Hannibal would fall. To Scipio, Spain wasn't just some sideshow. It was the main show, and it all rested on New Carthage. But a surprise attack on Carthage's capital city in Spain? It was a ridiculous idea. Even if you pull off the 7-day forced march past the Carthaginian armies to New Carthage. Once you get there, you'd only have a couple weeks to take the city before the Carthaginians arrived to kick your ass. Sieges of cities that fortified usually took months, if not years. So Scipio,
what's their
how are you
plan?
going to pull this
Or what's
off?
his plan?
10-day march.
First of all, to make sure the surprise plan stayed hidden, Scipio kept it a total secret, even from his own men. Where are we going, Skippy? I'm not telling you. Is it Disneyland? I'm not telling you. I think that means we're going to Disneyland. This secrecy kept the Carthaginians from preemptively reinforcing the city. As a result, New Carthage was left under garrisoned because the Carthaginians believed it to be kind of naturally impenetrable. It was surrounded on 3 sides by a lagoon and only accessible via a narrow isthmus. What's an isthmus, you ask? Maybe read a book. All right, Scipio, you made it to New Carthage. Now the other Carthaginian armies are only a 10 days march from coming and kicking your ass. Just what were you thinking? Well, Scipio had learned something crucial. Every afternoon, the tides made the lagoon around New Carthage briefly shallow enough to cross. So, he ordered a large diversionary attack on the main city gates, distracting the city's defenders. Then, a small infiltration force traversed the lagoon, climbed the unguarded northern walls, and entered the city.
You
They ambushed
sneaky
the
little
guards and opened the
bastards.
city gates
Sneaky
to the
little
rest of Scipio's
bastards.
army. And just like that,
Nice.
had fallen. In
Go
a
on, Scipio
single
the
day,
Younger.
Scipio had taken Carthage's capital city in Spain, and he made it look easy. With it, he seized much of Carthage's war supplies, several silver mines near the city, and various powerful Iberian tribes even joined his side. And now he was in a great position to take on the other
I'd be
Carthaginian
pissed.
armies in Spain.
Human.
Wow, Skippy, you're amazing. Don't call me that. How'd you know the lagoon would get shallow? It's almost like you speak to the gods. No. I told him. All the local farmers know about the lagoon. Yes, that's it. I speak to the gods. Scipio had no problem allowing his men to think he was divinely inspired. Roman writers also tell us another of Scipio's traits. He was apparently quite merciful in victory and often protected the inhabitants of captured cities.
Nice. Strong.
Spencer! What are you doing? Well, I was just about to murder this family. Hey, bad Spencer! No! Can I at least kill the dad? No! What about the... No! Oh, you're mean! The Carthaginian generals in the region must have been shocked at the loss of their capital city. There was now a Terminator in Spain, and he was coming. In 208 BC, he made a move on Hasdrubal, hoping to defeat him before the other Carthaginian armies could come and link up. When Hasdrubal heard Scipio was coming, he said, Hasdrubal did the sensible thing and climbed a big hill for safety. Hey, get down here. I want to kill you. Fat chance, Vin Diesel. Well, he doesn't have to be rude. So what's the plan then, Scipio? This time, we march straight up and at him. Right? Right, Scipio? Billy? No.
Had you not learned yet?
Scipio once again displayed a distinctly not Roman approach to fighting, when instead of marching straight up and at him, Scipio feigned a frontal skirmish, only to pull off a surprise uphill envelopment.
No
Not
way.
an easy thing to do, but Scipio had trained his army to pull off maneuvers that typical Roman armies couldn't.
Strong.
After the battle, the defeated Hasdrubal fled Spain, hoping to link up with his brother Hannibal in Italy. And Hannibal desperately needed the help. As Scipio was dominating in Spain, Hannibal's struggles in southern Italy continued. He was convinced that if he
all
just
crumbling
received
down
ample
upon
supplies
him.
and reinforcements, he could reverse his fortunes and get back to kicking Rome's ass. But for the remainder of the war, he would suffer a frustrating lack of support from the Carthaginian Senate.
Yeah, they were just
After
too much of a
Cannae,
pussy.
Hannibal had sent his brother Mago to Carthage, where he famously poured out golden rings taken from fallen Roman knights. He told the Senate that with reinforcements, Hannibal could finish the job. But a growing faction in the Senate, possibly jealous of Hannibal's rising influence, opposed sending any help. In the end, a large number of the reinforcements gathered for Hannibal now ended up being diverted to stop Scipio in Spain. Just as he had hoped, Scipio's campaign
That
in
I
Spain
remember.
was actively
Big
harming
blunder by
Hannibal
Carthage.
in Italy. However,
Idiots.
those reinforcements meant that when Scipio
Idiots.
made a move on the remaining Carthaginian armies in Spain, they now likely outnumbered him. With the odds heavily stacked against him, it would take some
Scipio.
serious skill to win this battle. This time we're gonna march straight at them. No, Billy! The preceding Battle of Ilipa is often considered Scipio's masterpiece because it was positively oozing with deception and trickery.
Okay.
First, both sides spent several days forming up and facing off without actually fighting. On each day, Scipio placed his strongest Roman legions in the center with his weaker Iberian allies on the sides. Seeing this, the Carthaginians were like, "This guy's an idiot. We've seen his plan. His strongest troops are going to be in the center. So let's form all of our battle plans based on this information. I'm sure he won't change anything at the last minute." Then, when the day of battle came, Scipio woke up the Carthaginians with an early morning attack, causing them to rush out of
this.
camp without breakfast. When the Carthaginians lined up with their strongest troops in the center to meet Scipio's, they were stunned to find that Scipio had completely reversed his order. The weaker Carthaginian sides now found Scipio's strongest bearing down on them. Then, in an extremely impressive maneuver, the well-trained Roman wings even stretched out during their approach, hitting the Carthaginians from the sides. The Carthaginian
Strong.
center could have turned to help, but Scipio had ordered his center to approach so slowly that Carthage's center could do nothing but just stand and wait. In this way, the outnumbered Scipio
Otherwise
had
they would
cleverly
start getting
controlled
attacked from
events
the rear.
so that the bulk of the strongest Carthaginian troops couldn't even fight during the battle. He had completely removed them from the equation. The incredible Scipio had inflicted a monumental defeat on a much larger enemy force. And the Battle of Ilipa
Nuts.
was the final nail in the coffin for Carthaginian
Yeah.
Spain. Yet more
that
tribespeople
fucking
continued to side with the Romans, and the
lost
remaining
count of that.
Carthaginians retreated to the coast and eventually fled the peninsula. And would you look at that? In just a few years, the incredible young Scipio had turned Spain completely red. The Carthaginians must have been stunned.
Yeah.
His Spanish campaign had almost been as impressive as Hannibal's campaign in Italy. In fact, see if any of this sounds familiar. In Spain, Scipio had used the environment of the battlefield to his advantage. He staged ambushes by concealed troops. He treated local tribespeople well, earning their friendship. He even once forced his enemy to come out and fight him without breakfast. Each and every one of these tactics were possibly borrowed from a certain one-eyed general. In all the
Too many
battles Scipio had fought
similarities.
against Hannibal,
Jack,
it
there's
seemed
too many
he may
similarities.
have been taking notes.
Hey, Scipio!
What?
Stop stealing my tactics! I'm 700 miles away. I can't hear you. What did you say?
What?
What?
Better yet, Scipio's achievement in taking a well-fortified city, plus his understanding of the overall strategy, has led some historians to argue he wasn't just as good as Hannibal.
But better.
Scipio may actually have been better. This young man, who many in Rome had doubted, had just shut those silly billies right the flip up. Mere years ago, it looked like Rome had no chance of even surviving this war. But now, the momentum of war was shifting astonishingly fast. And for Hannibal in Italy, things continued to head south. Before Scipio had even gone to Spain, the Romans had placed Capua, Hannibal's largest city in Italy, under a dangerous siege. And in order to rescue it, Hannibal needed to take drastic action. Fast. Man, everything's falling apart. Fine, I'll do it. Do what? Yeah, you've convinced me. I'll march on Rome. Hannibal, that conversation was 5 years ago. It's too late. No one's trying to convince you to march on Rome. I said I'll
Way
do it.
too late.
Quit nagging me. Ugh. Hannibal finally marched on Rome, hoping it might draw the Romans away from Capua. The Romans saw Hannibal approaching their city, and they freaked the hell out. Hannibal is said to have closely approached the city walls, inspecting the defenses, as the Romans inside quivered in their togas. However, Hannibal probably knew he had no chance of taking the city. The whole thing was a feint, and Hannibal soon left. The Romans famously coined the phrase, Hannibal is at the gates, to describe a moment of crisis or severe desperation. But for accuracy's sake, the phrase should probably be, Hannibal is at the gates. But don't worry, it's just a feint to draw the Romans away from Capua. And it didn't even work, because the Romans stayed at Capua, and the Capuans misunderstood and thought Hannibal had abandoned them. And so, they surrendered the
Yep,
city.
they capitulated.
But
You
apparently
can't blame them
that's
for
not
doing
as
that, can
catchy.
you?
Despite a few successes, including an ambush in 208 BC, where Hannibal managed to kill both consuls in one go, Hannibal was slowly but steadily losing his grip on southern Italy. Even Hasdrubal, who had fled Spain to join Hannibal, never reached his brother. He made his own dramatic crossing of the Alps, just as Hannibal had done. But unlike Hannibal, the second Hasdrubal arrived in Italy, he was immediately pulverized. The Romans then
he
took
made it
his
across
head
at
and
least.
threw it over the walls into his brother's camp. Hannibal was becoming extremely isolated.
Peak. Oh,
After
that's
his impressive
peak.
conquest of Spain, Scipio returned to Rome a hero. And when the election came for next year's consuls, despite not meeting the typical requirements, Scipio won in a landslide.
Yeah, I bet.
But the question now was, what would he do next? All right, what's your plan then, Scipio? You're gonna go fight Hannibal now, right? Get this, Fabius. No. Whoa! Scipio's plan remained the same as before. Don't attack the monster directly. Attack his base of support, which
Nice.
now happened to be Carthage itself. That's right, Scipio would invade Africa. However, Scipio understood that any invasion of Africa would stand a much better chance if he could secure an alliance with one of the African tribes. Throughout the war, Carthage's far superior Numidian cavalry, which came from this part of Africa, had played a critical role in winning battles. Numidia
wanted
was
those
divided
on his
between two
side.
rival kings. In the east, the king Syphax had sympathized with Rome for much of the war, and so at some point,
Interesting.
Scipio visited Syphax to ratify a treaty. It just so happened, however, that the Carthaginian general Hasdrubal Gisco, whom Scipio had fought in Spain, also arrived at the exact same time. And so Syphax invited both Scipio and Gisco for a meal. The two men fought for Syphax's alliance, and by Roman accounts, Scipio was positively charming. Come on, Syphax.
But who does he side
Stick
with?
us
That's the
Romans.
question.
We'll build a naked statue of you. Very enticing. If you join our side, Syphax, we'll give you a 2% discount on figs. You like figs, don't you? Not really. Hey, Syphax, check this out. Wow! Hey, Syphax, check this out.
I think I know
Did he
who's going
just
to win.
defecate? I believe he did. Well, Scipio, you clearly are the most charming man in the Mediterranean. My alliance is... Syphax, I'll let you marry my extremely hot daughter. Yours! Unable to compete with Syphax's libido, Scipio instead made contact with Syphax's rival, the other Numidian king, Massinissa, who was a longtime ally of Carthage. Scipio told Massinissa, if you join the Romans, I'll help you defeat Syphax and become the ultimate Numidian king. And so Massinissa was now on Team Rome. Good job, Skippy. With a Numidian alliance solidified, Scipio prepared for his invasion of Africa. He raised a volunteer force that included many of the disgraced survivors from Cannae, and he set sail.
Okay.
Well, Terry, any news from Italy? Has Hannibal won the war yet? Who on earth? Here's Skippy! The Roman landing sent a clear message to the Carthaginians. You don't invade us. No. We invade you. For the first time in the war, the Carthaginian homeland was under threat, and the Carthaginians needed to defeat Scipio at all costs.
They're fucking panicking
They
now,
gathered
aren't
a
they?
huge army led by Hasdrubal Gisco, with allied Numidians led by Syphax, and they ordered them to get Scipio the hell off their continent. Sources say at this point, Scipio was severely outnumbered. Scipio?
Big
That
time.
army's huge. There's no way we can beat off all these men. How are we gonna beat off all these men? Vigorously. And while maintaining eye contact. As always, Scipio had a plan to deal with the larger enemy force. It just so happened that Syphax was offering to try and broker peace between the Romans and the Carthaginians. And Scipio smelled an opportunity. He sent a Roman envoy to Syphax's camp. And when they got there, Syphax was like, "Hey guys, welcome to the enemy camp." Just before we begin negotiations, a small safety demonstration. As you can see, our huts are made of grass and reeds. Very flammable. If there was even a single spark, this whole place would become a raging inferno, and all my men would burn alive. Very interesting. The Roman troops then reported back to Scipio about the Numidian camp, its construction, and most importantly, its flammability. Then, the following night, as the sun was setting over the beautiful African plains, and the Carthaginians got all
Just
comfy
fire
in their
arrows?
beds,
Yeah.
they began
yeah.
to gently dream
Just volleys.
of Carthaginian figs and child sacrifice. Good night, Carthaginians. Good night, Syphax and Gisco. Good evening, Scipio. In the night, shadowy Roman figures approached the Numidian camp. As the Numidians lay in their beds, Scipio executed his plan.
Burn, baby, burn.
The camp erupted into flames. With the flammable wooden huts, the fires spread terrifyingly fast. Men were burned in their beds. Those who awoke in a panic,
Horror.
believing the fire to
Horror.
have been some kind of terrible accident, rushed to the exits without their weapons and armor. Those
And
who
the
saw the
Romans
fire
are
from
just
the
there, right?
Carthaginian camp also rushed out unarmed. And when they got there he was. Scipio, the Romans, and their steel.
Nice.
The terrified Carthaginians were massacred, and with heavy casualties, Hasdrubal and Syphax fled the scene of the disaster. Scipio followed this incredible success with another victory against the pair at the Battle of the Great Plains.
Oh.
After that, Massinissa chased his rival Syphax into his kingdom, where Syphax was captured. Massinissa was now the ultimate Numidian king. He entered Syphax's capital city. He seized Syphax's palace. He even married Syphax's wife. And when Scipio got mad at him
Hey.
for marrying a Carthaginian girl, he then poisoned his wife. Boys will be boys. Having defeated the Carthaginian armies
Oh
in
my
Africa,
God.
almost nothing now stood between Scipio and Carthage. And the Carthaginians were freaking out. What do we do? What do we do? There's only one thing left to do. Recall him. Well, Hannibal, you've been here in Italy for 16 years. This is practically your home. You're basically Italian. Yes, Gerald. And I've had such a lovely time. I ate spaghetti, did a this with my hands. I've committed my whole life to this campaign. And once Rome has fallen, it'll all have been worth it. Hannibal, you have to return to Carthage. Your Italian campaign has been for nothing. Your whole life has been a waste. No! Imagine being Hannibal in this moment. You left Carthage when you were 9. You probably barely even recognize your own homeland. The kingdom he had built in Spain with his father? Gone. And now his Italian campaign, his vengeance, Was it really all for nothing? But that was that. Carthage was under threat, and Hannibal
Rough one.
had to protect
That's
his
so
own
rough.
city. As he left Italy, in Rome, there was celebration, but also some trepidation. Now, Scipio would have to face Hannibal in Africa, where Hannibal would have home advantage. While Hannibal was on his way, the
Oh, the
Carthaginians
scared.
stalled for time and approached Scipio for peace talks. Hey, look, we never meant to start an all-out 2-decade-long war, but you did. No, that was Hannibal. He's to blame for all of this. Well, all right then. Sign this peace treaty. Okay, let me just get my signature right on there. He's here. Yes! Oh, look who's here, you bald prick! You're so dead now, Skippy. Don't call me that! After Carthage proposed peace, only to then go back on it, the normally merciful Scipio was enraged. He began refusing to accept town's surrender, and instead began burning everything to the ground, selling everyone into slavery.
Jesus.
He's burning our towns. Go stop him. Guys, he's obviously trying to lure me out there to fight on those flat plains, where his Numidian cavalry will give him the advantage. It's a trick. Well, it's working. Go and fight him. It's obviously a trap, and we're falling for it. Go and fight him. Hannibal set out to meet Scipio in the western
Dickheads.
plains. And
Listen
here
to me.
came Scipio's final test. Finally, the teacher would face the student, the two greatest generals of all time, in one last, decisive battle. Would Hannibal's genius still
This
shine
is just
through,
gonna come with
or
breaking
would
it.
Scipio prove
Yeah, it's
that
got to,
he
innit?
had surpassed the master? Before battle, the two great generals rode out from their camps and met in person for the first time.
Interesting.
Hannibal, I'm a huge fan. I thought you'd have more hair, and I thought you'd have more eyes. Touché. They then had a conversation, which I'll paraphrase. Hannibal said, "At the start of this war, I had great fortune in Italy. But look at me now, a sad old man who, like other sad old men, failed to conquer Rome. Your fortune can change rapidly, Scipio. You should consider negotiating a peace rather than risking it all in one last fight against me." Very eloquently put. Scipio then replied, "You negotiate? Negotiate what? I took Spain. I'm about to burn your pathetic city to the ground. What could you offer me in negotiations? I already have it all!" Ah! Seriously though, Hannibal, I am such a big fan. And so, it was settled. The two great generals would face off one last time in the epic Battle of Zama.
Okay,
Scipio
let's
gave his
go.
men, consisting of many survivors from Cannae, a pre-battle speech, telling them not only would they gain redemption, but they could become masters of the world. Hannibal told his men
Motivation for
probably
anyone.
nothing, because most of them didn't even speak the same language. As the two armies lined up for battle, something interesting became clear. Hannibal had more infantry and hoped to use them to brute strength the Romans. But Scipio had the nimble Numidian cavalry and hoped to pull off an envelopment. It was a complete role reversal of Cannae. As the battle began, Hannibal made his first move. He sent his 80 war elephants to smash through and weaken the Roman infantry. Scipio had the perfect response. He had altered his formation to create passages between the Roman maniples.
Nice.
His light troops stepped aside at the right moment, revealing the gaps ahead of the charging elephants. Elephants, if given the choice between a suicide charge into spears or a nice clean escape, will probably choose the escape. And that's what happened. Some elephants were so frightened from the noise that they even turned and smashed back into the Carthaginian cavalry, which the Roman cavalry then engaged. Your move, Hannibal. Hannibal wasn't an idiot. He knew that he was fighting superior Numidian cavalry on open plains. So when his weaker cavalry ended up being routed from the battlefield, he probably wasn't surprised and hoped the Roman cavalry would be lured as far from the battlefield as possible, because his infantry needed time to do a clever little job.
Right. what's he
Hannibal
got
had the
in hand?
numerical advantage, and he had positioned his army in 3 lines. The weaker troops were at the front, while his best men, the army that had been with him in Italy, were in the rear. As the Romans smashed into the weaker front lines, they managed to cut through them, but suffered losses and exhaustion in doing so. The same with Hannibal's second line, so that by the time the Romans reached Hannibal's superior third line, the two sides may have now been about equal in number. But the exhausted Romans had just fought an entire battle to get there, while the remaining Carthaginians were fresh and ready
Smart
to
by
go.
Hannibal.
Hannibal
That's what you
was
need.
still a genius. And this is where the final race began.
Those cavalry
Could
are going to
Hannibal's
come back,
stronger
aren't they,
infantry
Jack?
finish off
They're
the
gonna
Romans
fucking
before the
fuck
Roman
'em up.
cavalry returned from their pursuit? Who would be quicker, the Carthaginian infantry or the Roman cavalry? The answer: the cavalry.
Yep.
They had called off their pursuit just in time to turn around and hit Hannibal from the rear. And that was the deciding move. As the sandwiched Carthaginians were hacked to pieces, Hannibal knew he had lost, and he escaped the battlefield. It was a battle that some historians say was well fought on both sides. Both showed their genius, but fortune fell in the favor of Scipio. With just a few thousand Roman casualties compared to 40,000 Carthaginians, Scipio had won.
Let's go,
Hannibal
Scipio.
advised the Carthaginian Senate that it was time to surrender. 17 years of war, finally over. The terms Rome placed on Carthage were harsh. They lost territory and were prohibited from starting any more wars with anyone without Rome's explicit permission. Carthage basically became a weak Roman client state. And what of these two military geniuses? Well, Scipio returned to Rome triumphant. For his victory in Africa, he was given the title Scipio Africanus. He had delivered Rome from an existential threat, and so, from here on out, he was primed to dominate Roman politics. He was even offered to become consul for life, but he humbly refused.
Strong.
Politics being what it is, however, jealousy eventually grew. Scipio and his family ended up battling accusations of corruption. And Scipio,
Interesting.
possibly becoming tired of Roman politics, retired to a nice country house by the coast.
Fairs.
Hannibal also
Fuck
took
the
a leading
politics, I
role
was
in
a soldier.
Carthaginian politics after the war. But again, due to jealousy, factionalism, and a possibility of arrest by the Romans, he eventually entered exile. He spent the remainder of his years out east, even advising enemies of Rome. Rome's hatred of Hannibal endured, and they never stopped hoping to someday capture the monster.
Okay.
One story is told of how when a much older Hannibal was chilling in the city of Ephesus, a Roman delegation was sent to the city, and in that delegation was Scipio Africanus. The two men met for the second time,
Is this
and they
true?
seemed to have gotten along quite well. Scipio asked Hannibal who he thought the three greatest generals of all time were. Hannibal placed Alexander the Great in number 1, Pyrrhus of Epirus in number 2, and in third place, himself. Scipio then asked, "And what if you had defeated me at Zama?" "Well, Scipio, then I would have been the greatest general of all time. Please, call me Skippy."
Yeah.
Eventually, around 183 BC, Hannibal, now in his 60s, came under threat of Roman capture.
That's why if they actually met
After
up
a long
the
life,
second time.
he chose to take some poison. According to Livy, his last words: "Let us now relieve the Romans of the anxiety they have so long experienced, since they think it tries their patience too much to wait for an old man's death." Wow, Hannibal. What a dignified end.
Damn, he couldn't be asked to be on the run anymore.
Gross. And there you have it. The Second Punic War. Finally done. It took
Nice.
17 years to end the war. And on a personal note, making these videos has also taken 17 years off my life. Things began to recover from the war, shockingly
Alright, you get
fast,
pussy.
however. And anxieties over Carthage would remain in Rome. In particular, one senator would begin calling for one last crusade against Carthage to end the threat
Fabius
once
or
and for
Scipio?
all. He famously began to end all of his
no,
speeches
Cato
with
Viola.
one singular phrase, one of the most famous phrases in Roman
Right
history.
then.
Carthage must be destroyed. There's coming eventually. The Third Punic War. Big up indeed, mate.
This
What
video was made possible.
a bloody good
Editing.
video.
Storytelling.
Ah,
They're
amazing.
keeping us interested.
So
10,
fucking good.
10.
10. If you haven't already, please head over to his channel. He
Yeah.
deserves
I don't know
the
why you're on our
views.
channel if you're fucking not watching
If you
this
haven't
guy.
watched
Go
it
and check
already,
this guy out, man.
You,
My guy's
reactions.
mad.
You need to go watch the video first, then watch reactors to it. That's how I watch reactions. That's how you should do it. Go
There's another
over,
things pointed out to
support.
you. You don't
Oh,
know.
yeah. Or you just get to see us laugh about it. We thoroughly enjoyed it. That link's going to be in the description box down below. We can't wait for the Third Punic Wars. Let us know what you guys think in the description box down below. The description box, the comments
Would you
box.
like us to do like a what do you call it? Like, would you want us to make like raw edit videos of like when we're in World War III? And would you guys watch that if you're at home? Let us know in the comments down below.
Like, comment, subscribe. Patreon in the description box down below, and we will catch you in the next video.